Are you tired of setting up the same fat loss goals every year, only to end up in the same place? If you want that goal body you've been chasing, the key to a successful 2025 is to quit waiting until January 1st to get started. Starting these 3 strategies right now is the best way you can set yourself up to finally achieve your fat loss goals in 2025. After ditching decades filled with yo-yo diets, I finally achieved my goal body, but that was only after establishing these 3 habits. So in this video, I'll show you what these strategies are and how you can get started now so you'll never have to make another weight loss resolution. But how can you start setting up a simple plan today that'll make 2025 your best year ever? If you are ready to crush your goals come January, then stuffing your face through the holidays while planning perfection on January 1st won't help. Especially since that's the same pledge nearly 40% of people make each year, with 91% failing to ever reach their goal. Unfortunately, I was part of the 91% who promised a new year, new me every year for more than 3 decades. Even though I worked hard to follow the strict rules of whichever plan promised the fastest results, I continued yo-yoing through the same 20 to 50 pounds year after year. After hitting an all-time high of 245 pounds after my first pregnancy, I felt completely helpless. But even after I found the plan that I thought I'd follow forever, it only took a few years for my body to revert right back into that yo-yo, regaining 50 pounds no matter how hard I ketoed or how many hours I fasted. So how did I finally quit yo-yo diets for good, making weight loss resolutions a thing of the past? Instead of jumping into another strict plan to lose 50 pounds as fast as I could, this time I began by reflecting on my current eating and exercise habits before even thinking about starting a new diet. I first analyzed which habits were holding my weight loss efforts back. In order to separate the good from the bad, I had to quit believing all of the outrageous claims made by gimmicky influencers, because I finally learned the faster they claim that you'll lose weight, the longer it actually takes. This helped me figure out the most effective habits I needed to focus on, which allowed me to analyze where I was with these habits compared to where I needed to be. Since moving more is important for sustainable fat loss, I got a smartwatch that tracks daily steps. After some research, I learned that my 2,000 to 3,000 daily steps wasn't anywhere close to the 10,000 step range recommended for an effective fat loss plan. And even though I've been taught the opposite for so many years, I went back to believing that an effective fat loss plan actually does come down to calories in versus calories out, which meant I had to pay attention to the amount of calories I was eating instead of just focusing on how many carbs were in my meal. I also learned past diets that cut calories to only 12 or 1,300 a day were drastically slowing my metabolism, which meant this time I'd have to follow a more sustainable approach where I wasn't attempting to starve the fat off my body with another crash diet. Whether it be over-restricting calories by slashing carbs, another plate of meat, no thank you, or cutting calories too low by fasting 20 plus hours per day. How am I so full? I haven't eaten all day. Sure, these plans provided instant gratification because the scale definitely moved down those first few weeks, but these extreme low-calorie plans never led to lasting results, especially since I felt so deprived by the time that the weekend rolled around that I found myself binging on all of the foods that were off limits. Taking time to analyze my current habits of being far too sedentary while seriously over-restricting calories during the week, followed by eating way too much on weekends, showed me which habits I needed to change for a fat loss plan that finally got results. But after 3 decades in the dieting game, I learned that jumping straight into another strict diet was a disaster waiting to happen. So how did I make all of the habit adjustments necessary to go from this to this? Well, I eventually made it to my goal body, which I've maintained without struggle for more than a year. The process to get here didn't happen overnight, especially in terms of a world where diet culture boasts of unbelievable transformations in record time. But how many of those record transformations actually last more than a few months after achieving quick weight loss? While that was meant to be a rhetorical question, I can tell you that in the Biggest Loser study of 14 contestants who lost a lot of weight very quickly, only 1 out of the 14 contestants studied didn't gain everything back, which is a 93% failure rate. Since following diet culture is what led to my 30+ years of yo-yoing weight, I knew I had to have a completely different approach if I wanted all of my hard work to pay off longer than a few months. In order for my efforts to snowball into the success that I'd been chasing, I first had to set realistic goals while also planning ahead. But I'm not talking about meal planning for the week. Even though that is important, this time I had to plan way ahead by forming habits that are geared towards long-term results instead of just being focused on short-term goals. In the past, I always thought that if I worked as hard as I could just to lose the weight, that I'd just magically figure out how to stay there once I reached my goal. But that's the thing. All of these quick fat loss plans ever led to was burnout halfway through. I rarely ever reached my goal, and I definitely never just figured out how to stay there. Mostly because all of the fast fat loss hacks I followed never got me there. But when all you've ever learned are unsustainable diet hacks, how can you find long-term success by planning ahead with more realistic goals? Let me show you the simple changes I made that led to these big results. Once I learned that moving at least 10,000 steps a day is ideal for weight loss, I didn't suddenly spring into action, instantly going from 2,000 to 3,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps overnight. Instead of busting my butt to hit 10,000 steps starting on day 1, I gradually increased my step count over time. This was easy to do when I aimed for 4,000 steps a day that first week. Since that's really only adding a 10-minute brisk walk each day, didn't really take a whole lot of effort to get there. Once walking 10 minutes a day became a habit, then I increased my efforts, aiming for a 20-minute brisk walk instead. I continue adding a little more activity each week until I was consistently hitting 10,000 steps without even thinking about it. Well, that's great for me since I averaged over 10,000 steps for several years now. How can you hit the ground running with an effective movement plan starting January 1st? Well, not by running, because we're just on the walking stage right now. Plus, running doesn't really burn that many more calories. And it can even make fat loss harder whenever you overdo running in an effort to burn as many calories as possible. So definitely don't hit the ground running. Just walk. If you figure out where your step count is now and then slowly work that number up week after week, you can easily be getting 10,000 steps a day before even starting the year. But even though more movement is 100% necessary for a sustainable fat loss plan, there's still more to achieving your goal body than just moving more, like 80 to 90% more. Just like I had to slowly work myself up to routinely walking 10,000 steps every day, there were other goals I needed to put into place to get back on track, like monitoring what I ate. Long gone were the days of just tracking carbs or fasting upwards of 22 hours in between meals in an effort to control calories. Because I already tried those methods and they ended up doing some pretty serious damage to my stress hormones. This meant I had to figure out a moderate calorie deficit, and then I had to track everything I ate to make sure I maintained that deficit week after week. But this plan only works when I commit to tracking every meal. Because in the past, I always thought that if I got a solid start by tracking breakfast and lunch, but fell off by dinner because my day got busy, that would be good enough to get results. And I never really bothered tracking on weekends because working so hard during the week meant that I deserved a break, right? But it wasn't until I truly committed to tracking every meal, no matter how busy I was or how much I wanted a break, that I realized how much damage I can do whenever I stop paying attention. Because loosely pouring fat-heavy sauces, throwing on a handful of cheese, and even scooping extra beef adds up quickly when you're not paying attention to serving sizes. Don't even get me started on restaurant meals that often clock in above 2,000 calories per meal. Not only did I start the habit of tracking meals to lose weight, but even though I'm at my goal, I still track. I keep this habit in place as a reminder to not fall back into the habits that led to constant yo-yoing weight. Plus, keeping an eye on calories and protein helps me achieve other goals I didn't even think were possible as a 45-year-old woman. Even if we don't share the same strength goals, while moving more and eating in a moderate calorie deficit can be enough to lose weight, you are all but guaranteed to regain everything you lose if you don't establish the final habit. Because not adding this habit to your fat loss routine means you're not just losing fat, which is a really big problem when it comes to keeping the weight off. Let me show you what happens when your only focus is losing weight with the low calorie and high cardio programs that were all sold. The first week, you drop calories while hopping back on cardio machines, life is good. Sure, you miss noshing on chips straight from the bag, but watching that scale drop 5 pounds in the first week is completely worth the sacrifice. By week 2, you're feeling a little weak and you're definitely craving some of your old favorites. But not even regaining a pound on that scale will stop you because you've got goals. As the weeks go by, you continue struggling through a low-calorie, high-cardio plan where you have to keep lowering calories while adding even more exercise just to watch your scale break even. A few months in, you feel like total crap with cravings that are through the roof, resulting in a diet spiral that takes weeks to recover from. Plus, all of the pounds you struggle to lose come right back in record time. I know this pattern because I lived it for more than 3 decades. 3 years ago, I finally put my foot down and said no more, which is exactly what it took to get me to this place where I easily maintain a healthy weight while eating more food than I ever have. But what was the big change I made to get here? In order to quit struggling with low-calorie diets for good, I had to do something that I'd never thought I'd do. As someone who previously spent upwards of 10 hours each week sweating it out on various cardio machines, I gave that habit up completely. Instead of busting my butt to burn as many calories as possible, I shifted to an exercise strategy that taught my body how to burn more calories on its own, even when I was just chilling on the couch. Since more movement is important, I still focus on getting at least 10,000 steps a day. But for the first time ever, I prioritize my workouts on this side of the gym, which, as someone who spent 30 plus years huffing and puffing over here, this was an intimidating change. Since I learned that building muscle is key to building a strong metabolism, meaning I'd never have to follow another extreme diet again, this was something that I wanted in on. I started by spending 20 minutes a day on the basic machines that most gyms have. Once I learned that compound lifts are the best way to build a strong, lean body, I hired a personal trainer to teach me the proper form with all of the basic lifts. This made it way easier to show up over here while not feeling completely overwhelmed. 2 years later, working hard on this side of the gym is still my priority, which has made it a breeze to remain at a healthy weight even while eating close to double from where I started. For anyone doing the math, these days I eat nearly twice as many calories while putting in half as much time into exercise, all while easily maintaining my 50-pound weight loss. As someone who's been in this routine for close to 3 years, I wouldn't suggest running over to your nearest squat rack and throwing some weight on the bar. But I do recommend getting more comfortable with the basic lifts now. That way, you'll be ready to duke it out for the squat racks with all of the other New Year's resolutioners come January. The only difference is you will still be doing those squats from mid-February, once everyone else has already packed up their gym clothes until the next New Year, New Me resolution rolls around. Of course, staying consistent with these habits is a little bit harder than it sounds. That is exactly why I'm rolling out a brand new fat loss challenge this January. If you're finally ready to make 2025 the year you achieve your goals, click the link in the pinned comment to get on the list. I'll be walking you step by step through the habits you need to establish to eat more and exercise less, all while achieving your goals. While you wait for enrollment to open, you should probably watch this video next. That way, you'll understand the 2 major habits you need to get started with right now to help you start 2025 on the right track.